February 15th meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. This meeting is being held virtually via Zoom video conference and is also being broadcast on cable channel 15 and streamed online by FCTV. As this meeting is being recorded by Zoom and broadcast by FCTV, please be cognizant of what you say, how you say it, and what can be seen and heard in your background. Thank you to the staff for their continued support to this commission and assisting applicants. We're missing 3 commissioners. However, we have a quorum. We're in good shape. To our public participants, at any time during this meeting, you may enter any comments or questions via the chat function. At the appropriate time, they will be read into the record. The link and further instructions are located on the agenda. Chapter 107 of the Acts of 2022 regarding COVID-19 allows for full public participation. Therefore, if you'd like to be heard on a specific hearing, let us know via the chat function. Then at the appropriate time, I will call for public comment. When you are selected, you will be moved into the hearing as a participant. As such, you must have your video enabled, be succinct, and respectful of others. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. Regarding RDAs, under a request for determination of applicability, the applicant is asking the commission to determine if the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and/or the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw apply to their proposed project. A negative determination is that the provisions of the Act and/or the bylaw do not apply. Therefore, the project may proceed as proposed. However, a positive determination means that the provisions of the Act and/or the bylaw do in fact apply, and therefore the project would require a notice of intent application. Therefore, as an applicant, you'll want to hear a negative determination. First up, vote minutes, February 1, 2023. Anybody?
I wasn't there.
All right.
We can table the minutes, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, let's do that.
until a different hearing. So we'll just continue them on to the next agenda.
All
Do
righty.
you need a motion for that, Jen?
Yes, please.
I move to table the minutes.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to table the minutes for another meeting. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney,
Bird eye.
Matthews, aye. Steve?
That night.
All right, we've tabled the minutes, future agenda. Next up, under other business, creating community gardens at Peterson Farm.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So one thing, Kevin's coming in. I see him right here. So Mr. O'Brien is coming in. So community gardens at Peterson Farm. This is something that I have been thinking about for several years, actually talking to Alex Zola with the 300 committee. We were saying how we discussed this almost 7 years ago. If I can share my screen real quickly, Mr. Chairman, I'll give the board.
Video.
Okay, there you are.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Kevin. So this is the entrance to Peterson Farm. I'm going to zoom out a bit. This is the area of the farm, if everybody can see that. The fields and these buildings right here that are currently under a 10-year lease with Utopia Farms. Right in this little area, and oops, don't mean to make people dizzy. Right in this little area here was where there used to be a little house that was used by the DNR and Old Shellfish Constable. That house was removed a few years ago, and this area up here has remained vacant. We've been approached by members of the community to see if we can create some community gardens up in this area. Mark has been working with the DPW to clear some of the invasive locust trees, to see if there's enough sunlight up in that area where gardens could be placed. We've been working with Dick Pooley, who I see is in the attendees list. I'm going to stop sharing now. And just met with members of Falmouth Farming to discuss placing plots up in that area. While the Conservation Department is very supportive of putting community gardens up in that area, we did stress to the interested parties that if we were to place community gardens in that area, that there would have to be another entity that would be responsible for that. So we'll be working with either the Agricultural Commission or Falmouth Farming, which is a nonprofit, and to enter into, our thought is to enter into an MOU or license agreement, probably not a lease agreement, but maybe a license agreement with them so they can maintain the community garden plots, but the Concom would still own the property. It's something I have written to town council about to try to gauge what, whether it's a license, a lease, an MOU. We do have an MOU with the 300 Committee, another nonprofit. So it's something that the department would like to explore. And so at this time, we're just asking for the commission's endorsement to explore putting community gardens up at Peterson Farm and to work with council to draft the appropriate agreement so that, again, either the Agricultural Commission or an entity such as Farming Falmouth would be responsible for the maintenance and maintaining and funding of the construction of these community gardens. So I'm just asking for the board's support in pursuing this. I think it's a great idea. I've always thought that community gardens, I believe there are some out in the Davisville area, but there aren't many in the center of town. And we thought internally and with the 300 Committee that this area would be an appropriate place for some community gardens.
Would you like a motion?
Yes, I
Please.
would.
I'll make a motion that the Conservation Commission endorses the
Creation.
creation of community gardens and wishes Jen and whoever she works with the best of luck in putting something together that will be overseen legally. You got all this, Kristen? By town council. And that's my motion.
I'll second.
Oh. All right, we have a motion and a second to endorse this opportunity. Betsy.
I think Steve has a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry, Steve, I looked away.
Thank you. No, I don't believe we said at Peterson Farm. That's all.
Ah,
Oh,
point.
please add that to my previous few words. Thanks, Steve.
nothing few about it. All right. There's a motion and a second. Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Courtney.
Bird, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Steve.
That and I.
It is unanimous. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, before we go on, I think Mr. Byrd is requesting to be released from this meeting now that we have Kevin with us.
Absolutely. Courtney, thank you for coming in. though,
Thank
just in
you.
case.
We
Yeah,
release
and
you.
Appreciate it.
I'm on call, so if you need me for a quorum or a vote in order, I'm around.
I know how to
appreciate it.
find you.
My
Thank
you.
apologies, Court.
Thank you.
Hi, Court.
Bye-bye.
All right. For the record, Kevin came in to the meeting and Courtney has left the meeting. Still leaves us with a quorum. Next up, request for a continuance under an enforcement order. Susan and Gerald Lieber, 101 Lakeshore Drive, 16 Lakeshore Drive North, and 0 Lakeshore Drive North. Map and parcel number 22-04-027-004A, Falmouth, Mass. Unpermitted removal of vegetation and construction of retaining walls within conservation jurisdiction. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicants are requesting a continuance until March 15th.
So moved. Gladfelter.
Patton second.
And I have a question. Are we
Yes.
really gonna see it on March 15th? This has been going on for a long time.
I'm hoping so, Betsy. We did meet with Jeff Johnson to briefly discuss it the other day. So we're hopeful.
Okay, I'm just asking because I can tell you that there are a number of people in the community who are watching this and have been asking me. And I said, well, it's still on the agenda.
And it's going to stay on the agenda until it's resolved.
Okay, thanks.
Not a problem.
All right, anything else? All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this until March 15th. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until March 15th. Next up, request for a continuance to amend an existing order of conditions. Karen and David Howe, 0 Vineyard Street, Falmouth, Mass. Request to amend the order of conditions for Mass DEP number 25-4580 to adopt the special conditions associated with the Department of Environmental Protection's superseding order of conditions. Ken?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, the applicant is requesting a continuance until March 1st. Their final order from the DEP has been signed off. We've clarified some additional language that we're going to be adding from the local level. We had a conversation with the attorney yesterday. He just needs to get his group together. One of being their coastal geologist who now resides in Delaware. So he's checking on those schedules, but he's hopeful he can get everybody to the meeting on March 1st so we can get this moving. And they'll have a complete packet within our office next week. So you'll see the original order, the changes, and then we'll be adding some proposed language for protection of piping, plovers, and lease terms.
Okay. So moved.
March 1st.
Second.
Continue to March
O'Brien.
1st.
Second.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to continue this till March 1st. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
All right. We have continued this until March 1st and need the formality of names with the motion and a second for the record. So for the rest of the meeting,
Okay.
please. Next up, request for determination of applicability. First up, Eel Pond Place LLC, 89 Water Street, Woods Hole, Mass. For permission to remove and replace a portion of the existing driveway. Ms. Bergeron.
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
So moved. Patton.
Gladfelter, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Any questions or comments? All right, Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Joseph F. Salvucci and Ellen Saslaw, 50 Rivers Edge Road, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to vista prune according to FWR 10.18, 10B, and to remove fallen and dead trees. Ms. Bergeron?
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
So moved. Gladfelter.
Patton, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. There's no questions. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Mark Hamill, 19 Meadowwood Lane, East Falmouth, Mass. for permission to reconstruct a deck in the same footprint. Ms. Bergeron,
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
So move Gladfelter.
Patton,
O'Brien,
second.
second.
ooh. I think I scared you because I wanted your names. Wow. All right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, I.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, John F. Fitzgerald III and Sharon L. Fitzgerald, 135 Alder Lane, North Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct a single-family dwelling with a garage, deck, porch, paved driveway, and raised AC and generator platform to install a Title V sewage disposal system and dry wells and all associated grading, clearing, and landscaping. Ms. Bergeron,
Staff recommends a -2 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed, and this project is solely located in an AE flood zone.
So move Gladfelter.
Patton, second.
all right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, I.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Amy Lowell, adjacent to 71 Water Street, Woods Hole, Mass. For permission to repair an existing force main with concrete formwork. Ms. Bergeron,
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
So move Gladfelter.
Second, Patton.
all right, we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, I.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, James Clark, 104 Penzance Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to replace 2 existing pilings on an existing licensed dock. Ms. Bergeron,
Staff recommends a -3 under the state and a -2 under the bylaw. Resource area boundaries are not confirmed.
So move Gladfelter.
Second, Patton.
we have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, I.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have accepted staff's recommendation. Next up, Joseph H. and Kelly J. Wagner, 103 Beach Street, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to construct a patio with pool, spa, and fire pit. Ms. Bergeron,
Yes, the applicant's representative have withdrawn this application.
excellent. All right. Thank you, Emma. Those staff reports, explanations. Next up, request for hearing under notice of intent. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are held simultaneously under the authorities of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision of the commission is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority. As a reminder, public commenting is limited to 3 minutes. So I encourage you to stay within the purview of this board, which are the rules and regulations of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw, and how they pertain to a particular application. The chair reserves the right to stop any commenting that is disparaging or inconsequential to the hearing. First up, Nordo Nissi III and Jane R. Nissi, 117 Little Neck Bars Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to conduct invasive species removal and restoration. Then,
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have promoted Erica Norman from Merrill Engineering and Land Surveys up to present her project.
thank you. Ms. Norman, you're up.
Hi, I'm Erica Norman from Merrill Engineers. I'm speaking on behalf of the owners at 117 Little Neck Bars Road. The proposed project is invasive species removal. Let me share my screen. So it's going to be an invasive species removal and restoration of approximately 11,755 square feet. It will be removed by hand and treated with herbicides. The areas will then be replanted with native shrubs and trees, which are listed on the plan and in the narrative. This existing gravel driveway is to be relocated to the north, further away from the resource areas. The resource areas on this plan are the coastal bank, the BVW, and it's located within land subject to coastal storm flowage. Received staff comments and we have addressed them. We are planning on continuing, but we would just like to address the comments now and ask if there's any other comments tonight. So the first comment was about existing stumps on the property. They will be removed and then planted over. All the debris on site and in the wetlands area will also be removed during the invasive species removal. And we are planning to submit a new plan. We realized that the existing trees were not located on this plan. Therefore, we're going to locate them, put them on the new plan, and we will move our proposed trees around that and make sure that they are also not in the way of this overhead line. Staff have also mentioned that they believed there is salt marsh in this area. We had Brad Holmes from ECR go out and flag the wetlands on the site. He did not mark any salt marsh, but we will reach back out to him and have him take a second look. We went out on site today and we looked at it as well, and we definitely are going to have him look at it again. With the next plan, we will also provide DCPC calcs. Tim discussed with Jen. And then the staff had mentioned that this area, I believe right here, looked like it had been mowed. We had talked to the owners and they said that area has been mowed and maintained since '79 when they've been on the property. So we can address that as well. Does anyone have any questions?
Erica, if you're done with your presentation, if you would stop sharing and we'll get questions. Jen?
I think pretty much Erica covered it. We do need to meet out with the applicant's representative again. I think her colleague from Merrill mentioned that they wanted to do another site visit with staff. So we may be doing that before the next hearing. And she just went by point on things that the staff would like addressed. So I think the thought was to get this open before the board, see if the board had any additional concerns beyond what the staff had already identified, and then they could address those additional concerns as well. But right now, we do have a lot of work to do on this plan.
Okay. Ms. Bergeron?
I have nothing to add. Thank you.
All right. Commissioner comments and questions. Betsy?
I have a question, and Erica, I realize you can't really answer this, but it sounds as if the owners are the same owners that have been there.
Yes.
How do you get to the point where all these large cedar trees were cut?
So it was I think they inherited it from their parents and it's so it is new ownership, but it was in the wife's family forever. And yeah, so it is going through like a name change.
But my question is whether it's a brand new owner who's never even been in Falmouth, who comes into an area where you can see a pond and cut down large trees?
Yeah, I think the owner, the husband, he was unaware and he thought he could cut down trees that weren't near the pond, as I was told. So I believe Tim went on site and addressed the situation early on, and we promised that we'd come back with the restoration plan.
Okay. I mean, there are a lot of trees there that can be saved, but you're going to have to pull invasives out of them.
Yeah, there are, I think we counted today like 6 trees in one area, 4 in the area 2. But we are going to go mark them and put them back on the plan. They weren't on the plan previously. That will be saved.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Kevin?
I think I'll wait till I see the continued project.
All right. Steve?
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any additional questions. I thought the petitioner had listed the areas of interest and intends to address them. So let's see how it goes.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Erica, you have a request for us?
A request for continuance on March 15th.
Okay, at the request of the applicant, make a motion to continue this hearing till March 15th. Gladfelter.
Second, Patton.
O'Brien,
All right. We have a motion and a second to continue this hearing until March 15th. Any more comments or questions? All right, Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until March 15th. Thank you, Ms. Norman.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Have a good night, Erica.
Mr. Chairman, 3-1 seems to be very full. We're not going to continue anything to 3-1 anymore tonight, correct?
No, we are not.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Steve. I didn't have to be the bad guy this time. All right. Moving on. Next up, Pincinel Builders, 362 Ecopesket Road, East Falmouth, Mass. For permission to raise, RAZE, an existing single-family dwelling and construct a new single-family dwelling with a garage, porches, patio, and pool to install a new IA septic system and to install mitigation plantings. Ben?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm promoting Mike Borselli up to present his project.
right.
Should be coming in. There he is. Mike, am I promoting anybody else up with you?
No, you're not. There's a Mr. Bello in the audience. He's the new owner, and he's going to monitor. And if there's something that comes up that I'm not able to answer, I might ask you to promote him. But for the time being, no.
Okay, Mr. Bello, if you can hear me, if you want to be promoted up, just hit the raise hand function and I'll promote you up.
All right, Mr. Borselli, you're up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, Mike Borselli, Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'd like to share my screen.
Absolutely.
We're before you tonight seeking permission to raise the existing single-family dwelling and garage and reconstruct a new one in a different location on the property. Many of you if not all of you, were participants in a previous application on the property and where an order of conditions was issued for a new house. That order of conditions was issued to the previous owner, who then decided to sell the property to Mr. Bello, and Mr. Bello has hired a new architect and designed a new house. And it's different, it's bigger. And we have applied for a new notice of intent application, and we're hopeful we'll receive a favorable order of conditions. So what you see before you on this screen is the existing conditions on the property that include the house in this location, a detached garage. There's actually a small boathouse with deck surrounding here, right down at the water's edge. This property's on Green Pond, and the wetland resources include land under the ocean, land containing shellfish. There's a salt marsh bordering, and at the toe of a non-eroding coastal bank. The coastal bank actually meanders through the site. It's shown as this orange line. It actually is defined by part of the house and some retaining walls that were built decades ago, and it meanders along in parallel to the flood boundary. So there's a coastal bank and a no disturbance zone A having a width of 50 feet and an outer buffer zone B having a width of 50 feet. Those buffers to the wetland resource coastal bank are delineated on the plan as well. The blue lines represent land subject to coastal storm flowage. Closest to the water is an AE 15. And as you work your way inland, there's an AE 13. And then the rest of this is non-flood zone. The proposed house. So this plan shows the proposed house, and it also shows shading in green, which represents mitigation planting. We have shown on the plan for your reference in a fine dashed line the location of the existing house and the existing garage. You can see that the new house has been pulled back significantly from the salt marsh and from the coastal bank in this location. The garage has been removed and the house is shifted back. There's a patio and a small plunge pool associated with the application. There's a proposed driveway and of course an upgrade to the septic system. The existing house has 3 bedrooms in it. The proposed house has 4 bedrooms in it. In an effort to mitigate for the added 1 bedroom, we're proposing a IA septic system to be retrofitted in part of the septic system. We have applied to the Board of Health and we have an application pending for next Monday night. But the nitrogen loading, we're not obligated to upgrade to an IA system if we were to keep the bedroom count at 3, but since we're increasing and we're less than 100 feet from the top of the coastal bank, we've proposed the IA system. The IA system treatment with 4 bedrooms results in less nitrogen loading than a non-IA system with 3 bedrooms. So there's a significant improvement over the wastewater discharge, even though there's 1 bedroom being added. We've done this before on other projects that have been before you and the Board of Health, and it's been a viable mitigation measure. So we're hopeful that you'll see it that way on this project as well. The mitigation planting and the calculations for the mitigation were done in the usual way that I do, but I do these exhibit plans that show in blue the impervious surfaces in the A and the impervious in the B for the existing condition. And then I also show it for the proposed condition. And then in the tabulation of all the areas is on the plans, and you can see there's a significant increase in blue from the existing to the proposed. But the net result of all of that is summarized on this page of the plan, where there's when you run through, there's a net increase of just over 2,500 square feet in the A zone. And at a 3-to-1 ratio, that requires just over 7,500 square feet of mitigation. And in the B zone, there's a net increase of 411, and at a 2-to-1 ratio, that's 822. And when you do the math, you're just under a requirement for 8,400 square feet, and we were proposing 8,600 square feet. Just to contrast that with the project you already approved and issued an order of conditions on, the old plan had required mitigation of 5,000 square feet of new mitigation planting. This plan has a requirement for just under 8,400 square feet. The old plan required the removal of 13 trees and proposed 13 trees. This plan proposes to remove 18 trees and give back 20 trees. The plant material that we identify on this plan is the same plant material that was reviewed and approved on the last plan. It's just reconfigured somewhat, but the mix and the palette of the shrubs is the same. The tree types are the same. They're just rearranged to accommodate the new house. No mitigation is within 10 feet of the structure or the patio. And all the trees are scattered through the property in places that are either currently coastal bank or within the A zone, with the exception, I believe, of 4 trees. The bulk of the trees that are being removed were clustered in the B zone, and there's a series of hemlocks that were probably planted as original landscape screening trees, but they've grown enormous and they're proposed not to be removed. There are some scattered oaks through the site as well. I received the staff report yesterday, and I went through the staff comments, and I'll just touch base on those. I've actually already made these revisions earlier today. I think they're all pretty straightforward, and some of them are just simple labeling corrections. For instance, we left some proposed tree labels on the existing conditions plan. That was a CAD oversight, so we've corrected that. Limit of work was labeled on the existing conditions plan. That's been corrected. Staff had a comment about 2 of the trees being within 10 feet of the house and recommended they be moved. That would be this tupelo here that's about 8 feet from the house. We're proposing to move that over here. And this swamp oak is slightly too close to the house here. We're proposing to shift that as well. It's already been changed on the plans, but we didn't do the reprographics or get them stamped by the land surveyor, so I didn't provide them to you yet. There was a question about the overhead wires and whether or not they'll remain. The answer to that is no. The new house will be served by underground utilities, so there'll be no interference with any of the proposed trees, which was a concern of your staff. We had a typographical error on the number of trees provided. We had said 29, and we're actually providing 20. There was a request that we discount the mitigation planting area to take into account a radius around each of the trunks of these trees. So we've updated the calculations and we're gonna show that the shrubs won't be planted within close proximity of the trunks, and we'll discount the mitigation planting to offset that area of mitigation and not take credit for that on the revised plan. And I think that sums it up. Here to answer questions.
Thanks, Mike. And
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for addressing all the comments, Mike. The only concern I would have on the revised plan is I'd like to see how you recalculated with the radius around the trees.
Yep.
So,
Well, I can explain that. We typically do a 5-foot diameter circle. So a 5-foot diameter circle has about 19 square feet. So we'd have to deduct 19 square feet from multiplied by, I think there's 15 trees in the mitigation area. So we'd have to deduct that number from the overall provided mitigation and make sure we still have sufficient planting for what's required. And I think we can do that.
yeah, I don't think we're gonna be able to close the hearing until we see that plan, Mike. I understand we just got this to you yesterday, but,
Yeah.
because, and the only reason I say that is because right now you fit everything in the A zone to the buffer.
Yep.
But you are right up against that 10-foot all the way around that
Yep.
patio and house, and I don't know how you're gonna squish that other mitigation in.
Yeah, I've already thought of that actually. And yes, we did. We sort of designed the house to work into this. And one of the things that something might have to give, and that something is more than likely going to be, we might have to make an adjustment to the patio size. It's a rather large patio. So we're going to consult with the owner on that and probably have to trim off a foot or so of the patio to compensate. So we're providing more than is required as it is. We're providing about 200 and just over 200 square feet in excess of what's required. So we'll have that credit to work with. Plus we'll have to probably reduce the patio size somewhat to.
Yeah, it looks like you're gonna have to account for like
Yep.
285 square feet. So I think we might have to continue this just so we can look at the plan, but I think it'd be very simple. Unfortunately, you can't have the first.
It would be
But-
great if it could be a condition because they're really under the gun for getting construction drawings done, but I understand if it has to be continued.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's all I have. Just thank you for answering all the questions.
Sure thing.
Ms. Bergeron,
Thank you. I think there was just one other comment here, Mike, in relation to the old plan. I know that Sweet Gale and Rose were approved as former mitigation plantings. You're just proposing the same ones. Just wondering if you had an idea how large planting area C is in which those two are proposed, just so we can get an idea of.
I calculated that and it's about 4,300 square feet.
Okay. Jen, I'm not sure if you have any comments on that, on approximately what percentage of that staff would be comfortable with being composed of Sweet Gale and Rose.
Yeah, we'll have to have a discussion with that, with the commission. It was just, Mike, on the other two planting areas, you had a gallon size, but on planting area C, we don't have a gallon size. Is there a reason for that, or was it just like an oversight? You look at your planting notes.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they come gallon size. I'm not an expert on that. So I just
Well, I know
want,
the rose does, and the sweet pepper bush and the arrowwood do. So, okay. Well, we'll have to come up with some percentage of each.
yeah, we would accept a condition on that. I took the lead on the plant list from the original approved plan and specified the same sizes and however they were proposed. In there, you know, if it had a gallon container, I specified that.
Okay. Well, we'll have to continue this anyway, so we can probably have a quick chat about that. And
Okay.
look at the old plan before you come back.
That was my
Any
only
further on
question.
it? Oh,
Thank
okay.
you.
All right. Mike, I appreciate the work you guys do in trying to make this work within a specific envelope. So that's, I mean, that's obvious to me. Just to clarify, as I understood it, that you need about 300 square feet more of plantings to eliminate around the trunks. However, you're 200 or 100 square feet over. So your net, I don't know, I wrote it here somewhere, 100 square feet or so.
That's about it. And if I trim about a foot off the patio, I think I'll have it.
Okay. I'm just
Right.
clarifying because about 100 and
Yeah.
Jen, I heard you say something like 285. So there's obviously discrepancy there.
Mike said 19. I just multiplied 19 by 15 trees, and that's where I came up
Right.
with that number.
And then he's over already. So in a minute,
Yeah, so it would be
All right.
that 85
Okay.
plus.
And for every square foot I reduce on the patio, I save 3 square feet of mitigation. So I think we can get there easy enough.
again, just looking to clarify that because I hate to have you come back with what you think is a solution and it's not. That's probably not the right word, but and then just to reiterate, you think that's could not be conditioned? You don't want a revised plan?
I'd
I
like to
have,
see a revised plan.
yeah, I definitely want to see a revised plan.
Thank you, Jen and Jen. All right. So, all right. And you said the new trees, the amount is 20, not 29, correct?
Yeah. We'll make that correction.
Thank you. All right, Kevin.
No additional questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, Steve.
No questions. I thought it was significant improvement over the last plan we reviewed. The project had moved well back from the resource areas, and I understand the questions about the mitigation, but it definitely is an improvement. I appreciate the effort.
Thank you. Betsy.
Mike,
Yes.
where's your 1 tree per every 1,000 square feet of mitigation?
We did not do that for the same reason we didn't do it on the original plan. We had a discussion when you reviewed and issued the order of conditions the first time, where this is such a significant lawn area and it basically has 0 buffer, in that the bulk of the trees were in the B zone, that at that time you allowed 13 trees to be planted for 13 trees that were cut. So we just took our lead on that. But we actually added 2 trees. So we actually did better than what you already approved. So we think that the buffer, over 8,400 square feet of shrub layer with a 0 is significant. And we just took the lead on, as was established on the last review.
Well, that's not what everybody else has to do. I don't know why it was at that point. But I look at plants, as you know, functionally. And a tree functionally plays a much bigger role in ecosystem services than 19 square feet of shrubs, which might be there instead. So I think, and you're only basically, you said 231 cal per inches are taken down, and you're only doing just barely more than tree for tree. So at a minimum, there should be 29 trees. And I'll tell you one other concern that I have, and Jen, I'm going to address you on this one, because we have another hearing that's going to come up, which has to do with people wanting to remove vegetation from the B zone. And I worry about mitigation requirements put into the B zone. Because future people can come back. Although in this case, the tree removal was from the B zone, correct?
Correct. Yes,
All right, so it just has to be specifically stated in the order of conditions that, you know, these trees have to be here. You can't come back. I'm not saying you.
yeah, I understand what you're saying.
An applicant can't come back in 10 years from now and say, well, these are in the B zone, so we can take them.
Understood. Another reason we only did the 20 trees was the bulk of them were from the B zone, but the bulk of them now are being proposed in the A zone, which I think
Good.
has merit.
Good.
And I respect what you're saying about the trees and what the regulation says, but we were just going by what the attitude was in the last one. So that's why we did what we did.
Well, I remember the last one because I drove to here and I'm saying, didn't we already issue an order of conditions here?
Right, exactly.
But maybe I wasn't at the last hearing when it got reduced. Because you know that I rarely, and I know that Tom Bunker's in the audience too. I always bring that up. And it's for the functional role of trees in the environment.
Understood. If that's a
Betsy, how did you
consensus
come up
of
with
the,
29?
if that's a consensus of the board, then I will have to deal with it. Right now, I don't know that it's a consensus of the board.
All right, Betsy, how'd you come up with 29?
The 20 for the 20 for the trees that were removed, plus 9 for one tree for every 1,000 square feet of mitigation. And this is 8,500 square feet of mitigation.
Got it. Thank you.
So I think it'd actually be 27 trees if we're removing 18. We have to give you back those plus 9.
But I'm saying 18 is, that's a minimal amount to give back for 231 caliper inches.
So therefore 29 is what you think. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand the logic. 29.
I'm not trying to be punitive, Mike.
I know, no, I'm not. I don't take it that way. I just want to make sure I understand for future reference.
Mike, just for clarification real quick, all your shrubs are in the A zone. That's,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay. So Betsy, just all of the mitigation right now, all the shrubs are in the A zone.
That's good, but no,
Okay.
it's for the trees that were being
No, I know.
replaced. But
I
since
just-
they're trees that came from the B zone,
No, you just made a comment about removing mitigation in the B, and I just wanted to ensure you that all of the mitigation shrubs at least were in the A zone.
All right, anything else from the board at this point? All right, Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat function, Mr. Chairman?
All right. Mike, what are you thinking?
Well, I'd like a continuance, and I guess March 1st isn't available, and I would not want to be there that night if everyone's going to be grumpy because it's a long agenda. So I'd like to, I think the next one would be the 8th. Is that
The
right?
8th is a very good choice, Mike.
Hopefully I get some credit for that.
yeah, you'll definitely get credit for that, Mike. At the request of the applicant, I moved to continue this hearing to March 8th. I didn't even think there was a hearing at March 8th.
Just for Mike.
Yeah.
No, we don't have a hearing on March 22nd. We have a hearing on the 8th.
We keep hearing
I-
first and
The
15.
motion was Gladfelter, by Gladfelter.
Adam second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this hearing until March 8th. If there's nothing further. All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Steve,
Patton, aye.
it is unanimous. We have continued this until March 8th. Thank you, Mr. Borselli.
Alrighty, thank you. See you next time. Have a good night.
Hi,
Right,
Mike.
Mike.
I have two other plans that came into play, but Teresa Sprague's gonna take care of those. Because they were really blue flags issues. So even though they're my plans, Teresa's gonna make presentations.
Okay, so you're out?
I'm out.
Okay, good night, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Night, Mike.
Good night, Mike.
All right, next up, Martin Walsh, the second, 21 Bay Road, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to construct an addition and a second floor and to install mitigation plantings. Ben?
Yes, I am promoting Tom Bunker up. Let me find Tom. Ooh, I almost just removed Tom. Hi, Tom.
Hi. So I woke up when Betsy called my name.
Oh, good. I knew you were listening to all that with much interest.
Absolutely. All the talk about trees and shrubs. Yep. So,
Mr. Bunker, you're up, sir.
all set to go? I hope.
Sure.
Okay, yeah, for the record, my name is Tom Bunker with BSS Design, representing Martin Walsh, 171 Bay Road. I will share my screen if I may and get on with the description here.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we'll start out with the usual GIS map, just outlining 171 Bay Road. So it fronts on, see Rand's Canal in this location. Of course, Buzzards Bay is out here. And let me see. I will show a couple of pictures if I get there. I have a few pictures of the house. You should have all been there, but just in case, so we have this one-story house. In this picture, this picture is looking sort of northeast. The salt marsh and wetland is behind me as I'm taking the picture. That's, well, I can go back. You see. Was I muted?
Yes, you were, Tom.
Apparently you were.
So I start over. I don't know how I did it. Anyway. So this is the house, one-story house. The wetland is behind me when taking this picture, and this house sits up on a little hill. And this is the, you see one story, and they're going to add a second floor. They would like to add a second floor up in this location here. And as noted in the staff report, there was a letter from Longfellow saying that the foundation here is adequate to support a second floor. Move around to the end of the house. You can see there, just to give you an idea. And the wetland is off to the right on this picture. So here is where the above is where the second floor would go, and here. And this is where the addition will go, which I'll get back to the site plan before I get too far, but I'd like you to see we have this retaining wall around that holds up a patio and holds that up. There's the patio along the side of the house. Can't really see it, but the wetland is off in the background of this picture. And then the front of the house. With more patio, all surrounded by this retaining wall. And this is where the mitigation will go. In this area here, taking up 10 or so feet of the lawn area right here. And on the plan, I have to remove this cedar tree. And in behind here, there's some type of landscape. All I know about it has 2 needles in the per fascicle. And I don't think any of the native pine trees have only 2 needles here, and then in this area of Rosa multiflora, and this are the end of the pine trees that will be proposed to take out, and this holly bush right here is staying on site. Oh, that's the water service. Okay, don't need that. Our plan of existing conditions. Up here we have Rance Canal, land under a water body, land under the ocean, and salt marsh through here. In this area, the salt marsh area is in velocity zone or flood zone velocity VE elevation 17, and the Falmouth 25-foot wide velocity zone is up to here, and the remainder of the property is AE elevation 15. Now, the property owned the ground slopes up only to elevation 12 through here, 12 just above 12. So all the rest of the land is in flood zone, and there's some areas, mainly the land here. This retaining wall is considered coastal bank. There's a land area here, and this land area in front of the retaining wall and wrapping around the side of the house is all coastal bank. And then the bottom area here by the roadway is not, but then it slopes up steeper, and the area under here is coastal bank, and up on the other side. So anyway, it slopes from like 5.5, elevation 5.5, so down at Bay Road, which crosses the property here, up to 12 or so. And the nearest point of the house to the salt marsh is through here, 80 feet to the stairs, the front steps in this location, 80 feet. This 65 feet is from the salt marsh to the retaining wall, which is not part of the structure. I realized looking at it tonight that I have this plan. I drew some work limit silt fence through here, but not on the water side of the wetland. So I would add a silt fence limit of work down here in case there's any, don't expect any runoff to go down toward the salt marsh. So I'll add a limit of work down through here. And so the removals are this one cedar tree, which I showed in the picture, and this clump. There's that little pine tree down here, a couple little pine trees here, and then the Rosa multiflora in this location. And this retaining wall, this is where it could be considered cutting out face of a coastal bank. But then we're also removing this amount of patio to give some work area. And I can go now over to the proposed site plan. A little more visible on the detail. We have the proposed addition in here. So when colored in, the proposed addition will go here, and this bit of wall, cutting out a little bit further to make room to work. So the wall will be put back, and the house foundation across this way. It actually made this area way a little wider because the addition is doesn't fill up the full area to the existing retaining wall. And so because that's covered with stone, that counts as coverage also, that in that areaway, that's a little sloped, steppy kind of place. It goes down to the cellar below. This addition will be on crawl space, and will have flood vents through the foundation into the crawl space area. This area here, shaded, is where the second story will go. And so we have the calculations show that we'll have it's 168 square feet of addition. It's not all in zone A, but I counted it all. No, it is all in zone A. Sorry, yeah, 168 square feet in zone A, so it requires 504 square feet of mitigation, which we've shown down here. The shrubs in this location. I took down one large cedar tree here, so we're proposing six to 8 foot cedar trees in this location, and then the area where we took out the Rosa multiflora and these other pine trees will be filled in with more shrub, which is 29 to 33 shrubs in this location. And some dry well also, and there are some beach plums in this location here, and they're in the way, but they will be new ones will be planted back to replace beach plums that are there now. That is the proposal. Oh, staff report commented these stones should be removed from the salt marsh. I expected that, although I didn't label it on the plan. And also any boats, of course, vessels to be not stored on the marsh. And those certainly agreeable. So I'll take this down, take any questions.
Thanks, Tom. Jen?
I think it's Tom addressed our concern. The only other thing I wanted to add, in case I missed it, was you got that letter on the foundation, Tom, for the second story? Yes, you submitted that to us. Yeah. So that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Ms. Bergeron?
Thank you. Yes. Tom, 2 comments I neglected to put on here. Sorry about that. They're quick though. For the proposed mitigation and restoration, just a reminder to the applicant that they are to be allowed to grow. There is a lot of historically pruned shrubs on the property, so just a reminder that these are to be allowed to grow into their mature form. Also a comment, I know that big beautiful cedar has to come down in order to do the addition. It seems that the proposed cedars might be a little close together. I'll leave that for the commission to chat about, but staff would recommend spreading them out a little bit in that lawn area. But that was it. Thank you.
Those would be fine.
All right. Commissioner comments, Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate Tom's response to the staff's questions, which leaves me with no further questions, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Betsy?
Just a comment that I think that was a thoughtful planting plan. And I do agree with Alyssa, but that'll be a nice little grove of cedar trees. That's all, Jamie.
All right, Tom, I was going to joke with you about if you had documentation on the water service, but so I'm going to leave it alone. Kevin?
No comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Doesn't look like anything's in the public chat, Mr. Chairman.
And I'm going to make a motion to close this hearing and take it under advisement. Gladfelter.
Patton will second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. Are there any other questions or comments? Jen, you disappeared visually, so I can't see if you're raising your hand or not.
I'm fine, Mr. Chairman.
All right. All right, motion and the second is to close the hearing. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Steve.
At night.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Mr. Bunker.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
I'll hang around for one more.
No, I see you. Looking for your narrative.
All right, next up, Caesar F. Palmer, trustee, Pondview Trust, 6 Hamlin Avenue, Falmouth, Mass, for permission to reconstruct an unpermitted parking area. Done?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Tom Bunker is here to present his second project of the evening.
All right, welcome back, Mr. Bunker.
Thank you. It's been away for so long. I will, let me see. Yes, I'll introduce myself. My name is Tom Bunker with BSS Design. I'm representing Cesar Palma at 6 Hamlin Ave. After the fact, to construct a small parking area, and he wanted to make sure I submitted a revised narrative. He wanted to make it clear that before doing this, he did go into town hall to ask, I don't know what department, but he asked what permits he would need, and he was told engineering, and engineering signed off on a driveway permit, and so we started building it until he was told not to, or at some point. But anyway, he just wanted to say that he did try to go through the channels, but I think he wasn't steered to the right channel initially. But I'll put up our plan and describe it to you. This here, looking for the plan. There it is. No fancy coloring on this one. So this is on a lot. If you've been by, they're right behind the old village school, the Mullen Hall School, Shiverts Pond. This is the area where Hamlin Ave got rerouted, where it now going south and west. It's the walkway going around the pond rather than a roadway. And LEC flagged the wetland here, and it runs along through the back of the property. And actually, the remainder of it is on town property through here. But it does have, of course, the zone A 75-foot land under a water body passes through here. And the zone A 50 feet from the BVW passes through here. You have the A and the B line, the A lines there. And then there's the B line cutting through here, land under a water body, 100 feet. And of course, the line B, the zone B from the BVW goes out into the roadway. And of course, we're not in a flood zone, so there are no coastal banks. We have the house, a lawn area, and there's a little cottage in the back, and a garage, paved driveway. And this is the area here where he built, and it's a little bit of a block wall. It's a little built on a little bit of a side slope. So there's a block retaining wall here to hold the driveway up a little bit, and another retaining wall on the high side of the ground to hold the lawn back from coming into that parking area. So it's like a gravelly, somewhat grassy area here. And he was told to stop and get this permitted. And it was suggested to him to put in the some type of reinforced turf. So what I've shown here is the grass pave, which is, it's a PVC plastic type of, you underlay it, or it's kind of like a geogrid thing where there's a plastic mat with short cylinders. I think they're 2 inches tall cylinders here that you're filled with sandy soil, and it's built on top of well-drained coarse material. And the plastic matting there is what holds up and distributes the load, the weight load of the car tires. And in so doing, the sandy soil in the little cylinders, the soil does not compact, and that way it allows the grass to grow, even though it might get run over, but it will not compact and should stay alive. So this, if built properly, it is thoroughly permeable and should support, it's certainly been shown to support grass well if it's taken care of. And so this is what we're proposing to do now. The block wall itself is, I have it labeled on here somewhere, but I have the mitigation calculations. Let's see. Sure I do.
You have it right there. You were highlighting it.
Right there. Yeah, just it's hiding. You saw it. Surface area of the block wall is 39 square feet and is only and requires 78 square feet of mitigation planting. And so we have 78 square feet way back here in the zone A, 10 feet away from the cottage in this area, and 78 square feet requires 9 to 10 shrubs, spaced 3 feet on center, that area there. And it was in the staff report to designate additional mitigation area for the for this work. It wasn't specified, but I take that to mean that we need 680 square feet designated to offset this as a 2-to-1 mitigation. I talked to Mr. Palmer briefly about that, but I've not seen that it will fit on. I'm not quite sure that it will fit on, but if that's the requirement, in one way or another, I suppose I'll have to have a continuance to talk about this with Mr. Palmer more, if that will be the requirement. So I guess I'd like to hear first about this mitigation area. If we have to show that, and if we do, then I'll have to get a continuance to talk with him about it and try to see what I can do about it. So I'll take this down and so we can talk.
Thanks, Tom. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Tom, that requirement comes because, yes, in theory, these systems are supposed to work, but we have examples throughout town that they've been installed and they just aren't maintained properly. We also have examples in town where they have been maintained beautifully and do allow the grass to grow and do allow for overflow parking. So in the past, because there's such a mix of successful grass pave systems and unsuccessful grass pave systems, which are right now just filled with gravel and are just not pervious at all, the board has in the past said, we'll approve the grass pave, but we would like to see an area of mitigation in case the grass paves don't work and in case they're not maintained and they do become a less pervious surface that the board thinks should be mitigated for. We want to make sure there's room on the property to mitigate it if it fails.
I ask one question, and I guess we're generally talking about, you're generally talking about having the grass survive. But of course, in a zone, if it's truly pervious, now can we have just the other type that the other brand they call is gravel pave, where it's just you know, gravel in this type of system, and that if that is truly pervious, I think that I know that the grass would be required if it was in a zone A, but this is a zone B. And could we, even if the grass doesn't grow, but it's maintained as a truly pervious surface, can that remain that way?
That'll be up to the board, but we're just telling you what the board has required in the past.
Mhm.
And we're reminding the board what they've required in the past.
Yeah, I'm just making the distinction between a zone A and a zone B.
Zone B, I understand.
And I believe pervious surfaces are allowed in zone B without requiring mitigation.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Ms. Bergeron,
I have nothing at this time. Thank you.
okay. On that point though, Jen, if we allow gravel pave versus grass pave, would grass pave become gravel pave?
That's the problem we've seen is grass pave has become gravel pave. You know, it just hasn't worked. The systems haven't worked or haven't been maintained as they were, you know, presented to the board. So we're just trying to cover the board by saying, okay, you know.
Would we allow gravel pave without mitigation?
Have you allowed grass pave without mitigation?
Oh, no, gravel.
No.
No,
I think pervious surfaces, my understanding is pervious surfaces in a zone B do not require mitigation.
All right,
What's below your, do you have any dense grade in there?
What was that?
Dense grade? Is there any dense grade in there whatsoever?
No, it's shown as coarse. You don't need the dense grade.
What's a subgrade?
Hmm?
What's the subgrade made of?
Well, we didn't do a soil test there, but it would have to be, I mean, I understand why things can become not, I mean, especially if you try grass pave and they put in loam, and then that loam will filter in and make it not pervious. I'm just, it's intended to be, and I know this is where you say, well, intent is a good thing, but it doesn't always work. The detail is to build it as a pervious surface. When you have grass pave, it's a pervious surface with grass growing out of it, and that's for looks. So you can have also a pervious surface with just gravel. Now he wants grass. I guess I'd like to know. I mean, is it if it's done? Do you, as Jamie was saying, is gravel pave if built properly, and is done so it truly is pervious? You confirm that's allowed in a zone B.
interesting. Why couldn't the reserve area go in the lawn area?
What was that?
You need a reserve area, in theory, at least conversation. You need a reserve area of 680 square feet. Could that be the lawn area?
Well, it would
Homeowner's
have to
first
be,
choice, I get that, but
yeah, I just have to check and see if 680 square feet fits, 10 feet away from the structures and like that. And
okay. It just behoove the homeowner to keep it, the grass pave healthy.
right, and if you can keep it, and it does depend on how often it's on, and it depends on a lot if it's going to stay healthy.
Yep. Okay. My last question, is that cottage legal?
It's old. I don't know. It's been there a long time. I don't know if it's gone through the special permit process or anything like that.
Let's see.
I have no questions.
Evan?
No questions, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Steve?
No questions. Thank you.
All right. What are we looking at?
I will, so when is, they say what did Mike get kudos for? March 8th? Can I get a gold star too, or?
You can have a gold star too, Tom.
Yeah, I think I have something coming up March 8th anyway.
Tom, quick, is that 2 parking spaces or 1?
It is, it's like it's
1.5?
I think it's like a tight 2. It'd be a very tight 2. It's not 16 feet wide. I think it was like 14 feet wide. I don't have that right in front of me, but I think it was in my narrative.
Yeah. So just to let the board know, Mr. Palmer he did go to the town, did receive his curb cut. They started construction. The neighbor called the town. We went down there. I went down there specifically myself. The area was already torn up. So we allowed him to proceed with the condition that he did have to come back and permit this. So he is following through that he is trying to permit this. We just want to make sure, Tom, that, if this fails and becomes impervious, and that's what I'm trying to stress is these systems, when they're not maintained, become impervious systems. And that's just what we're trying to cover.
Yeah, I think a lot of that depends on
Try to figure out where we might be able to put some, because I said in some parts of town we have beautiful grass paves. They work, they function, they're maintained, and they're quite nice. And then other areas of town, and I have a number of examples dancing through my head on both scenarios. They're just, I don't know what they're worse than pavement. So.
Jen, is there anything in the public chat function?
Nothing in the public chat, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. All right. Tom, you have a request for us?
Well, I'll need some time to chat with Mr. Palmer and see exactly, see if I can fit what he wants to do until if the 8th works.
8th is fine, Tom.
I don't see any hands up. At the request of the applicant, I move to continue this hearing to March 8th. Gladfelter.
Second. All right, we have a motion and a second to continue this till March 8th. If there's nothing further. All right, Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
O'Brien, aye.
Steve?
Patton, aye.
It is unanimous. We have continued this until March 8th. Thank you, Mr. Bunker.
Thank you. Good night. I'm out.
Good night.
Good night, Tom.
All right, next up, Paul Lieberman and Rachel Nager, P. 2015 Revocable Trust, 24 Westwood Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to conduct invasive species management, remove an area of existing vegetation and install a fence. Ben?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have promoted Teresa Spraga from Blue Flax to Dine to present her project.
Good evening, Teresa, you're up.
Good evening. Thank you, everyone. Teresa Sprague with Blue Flax Design here on behalf of the Lieberman family. They are the new property owners at 24 Westwood Road in North Falmouth. With your permission, may I share my screen?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, I believe up in front of you, you see the site plan done by Falmouth Engineering. I'll just quickly walk through the resource areas and buffer zones. Located on the site is Coastal Beach, backed by Coastal Bank, Velocity Flood Zone, Elevation 18, AE Flood Zone, Elevation 15, as well as the associated buffer zone A to the Coastal Bank, and buffer zone B through the coastal bank, which runs just behind the pool and through the lower deck area on the property. So the Liebermans reached out to me about a year ago, literally just after they purchased the home, and to discuss some opportunities. They're a young family with young children and a small dog, and they were interested in finding some area for the family children to play. So they approached us about doing some invasive species management and removing some vegetation to allow them to have some lawn area in their backyard on the water side of the house. So what the plan you're seeing right now is the plan we've developed. We have the vegetated buffer zone A shaded in green. And then in the tannish color, we have the proposed area where we're proposing to remove some invasive vegetation and some existing vegetation, transform that to a fescue microclover lawn to allow some play space for the family. Plant the southern property line with a mix of native shrubs. Remove invasive vegetation that's located throughout the area that's shaded in tan, including some existing miscanthus grass that's located around the concrete base of the swimming pool, and replant that with native vegetation. In addition, they asked us to provide some fencings that would provide safety for the pool and for the family dog. So we are proposing some chain link or rail fencing. The decision has not been made yet. That would run from the house just to the south along the southern property line, and then run north-south outside of the buffer zone A, and then heading back east to the house on the north side of the property. We are looking at approximately 2,100 square feet of lawn restoration, and then 786 square feet within that area to be planted with native vegetation, mainly along the southern property line and along the edge of the pool. Prior to filing the notice of intent, I did come into the office and meet with Jen and Alyssa to discuss the project, to see if it's something that they felt could possibly be conditioned and approved by the commission. And at that time, we felt like it was appropriate to move forward with this. I did receive information yesterday afternoon that it appears that the vegetation, or some of the vegetation that was planted within that buffer zone B, was the result of some unpermitted vista pruning, or some maybe overzealous vista pruning that was done back in 2004, 2005. And as part of the requirements for restoration after that vista pruning was completed, some of the vegetation within this buffer zone B was required. So that was new information that we received. There is a mix of native vegetation within that area. There is a mix of invasive vegetation, including border privet, bittersweet, some porcelain berry and shrub honeysuckle mainly within that area. So the area has been, I would say that based on my observations, that the pruning of that area had continued and had been ongoing by previous property owners throughout both the buffer zone A and then buffer zone B. Of course, as we get down closer to the top of the coastal bank, we have some natural wind pruning that's occurring. There's a lot of eastern red cedars that are wind sheared in that area. But the bank itself is stable and very well vegetated, and the buffer zone, the A zone vegetation, is in really good condition, mainly native, 10% or less, just invasive vegetation, just generally located right along the edge of the shell pathway leading down to the bank. So within buffer zone A, we would only be proposing to selectively cut and treat the invasive vegetation that's potentially damaging the native vegetation within the B zone. The B zone would remain the A zone would remain undisturbed. And the B zone is the area that we're proposing to provide the family with some outdoor recreation space. We did leave a strip of native vegetation within buffer zone B in order to provide a little bit of a buffer to that A zone, to make sure that that A zone remains fully vegetated, protected, and intact. So I'm sure that there are some comments, and I'm happy to hear your feedback and see if there's a way that we could possibly proceed with this project.
Thanks, Teresa. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I mean, Teresa pretty much outlined it back in, and Alyssa outlined it in the staff report. When we first met with Teresa, we really weren't quite sure what the history of the property was. So we did, you know, we looked at the history, and this came up that even before my time, back in late 2004, early 2005, right before I started, there was some enforcement issues and some restoration plantings that needed to be completed to deal with a extreme vista prune. I don't know any other way to describe it. And the result was the plantings you see on the site. Unfortunately, after compliance was granted in 2005, those trees were and continued to be pruned, mangled. I mean, I mean, you saw the oaks, they're just not healthy. They're completely compromised. That's unfortunate. But so the staff really didn't really know how to go after that. We just figured we'd present the commission with the information and see what you'd like to do. You have allowed, you know, Zone B to be cleared in the current regulations, but we don't know how the board's going to feel knowing that these were restoration plantings that were required as a result of some past enforcement issue. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Bergeron?
Thank you. I don't really have much to add other than it is certainly clear that whatever vegetation did receive compliance has been heavily pruned since then, other than a couple inkberries. There didn't appear to be a lot of healthy vegetation currently in the B zone. So I'm not sure what the board is thinking. If the current homeowners do want to, you know, add a vista corridor on their plan to maintain what has been pruned in certain areas, you know, I'm sure we could accommodate that, but the rest should be able to grow naturally. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner comments, Betsy?
So you're leaving, Teresa, you're leaving like 10 feet into the B zone as a buffer?
Correct. So that we were making sure that we were protecting all of the vegetation that's in the A zone to make sure that it was very clear that there was a defined line and that the A zone was going to remain completely intact. So rather than pushing that proposed fencing right up to the edge of the A zone, we wanted to leave a buffer into the B zone to protect that vegetation in the A zone and make it very clear that that A zone vegetation was not to be touched and was to remain intact and be protected.
Okay, so I would suggest as an alternative solution for this to make that a larger buffer, make that a larger excursion into the, say, a 20-foot, and also work with staff, but come back with a vista, if you're going to want a vista window. And if you're going to plant any trees, don't plant them in the vista window.
Yes. So Vista management was not part of this project. And it is something that I discussed with the property owners after receiving staff notes. They were clear and understood. I did share the staff notes with them and made sure that they understood that they would not be able to do any pruning without permission from the commission. So at that time, which was actually just this afternoon, we discussed the fact that if we were to proceed with this plan, we would come back to the commission at a later date with a Vista management plan if the Liebermans felt that that was necessary at the time, at the later date.
Okay, but I'm just suggesting, you're
Yes.
gonna
no,
have
I-
to come back for a continuance,
Yep, I think it makes perfect
slip,
sense.
slip it in now.
Okay.
But I don't know how my fellow commissioners feel, or the staff.
You good?
I'm good, Jamie.
All right. All right. Well, I agree with what you said, and I agree with, well, I accept what Teresa said. If they choose they want to do a Vista prune, they have to come back for it. And to Alyssa's point, everything needs to be allowed to grow to its full mature height. So, and Jen's questioning something.
No, I'm just saying, Teresa, if you are gonna come back with a revised plan and implement what Betsy said, can you identify the oaks in that B zone and how you're gonna replace those? Because I know those oaks are on that side. And how we're gonna address that in that extra 10, 15 foot area that Betsy wants to see in that restoration area.
That's in addition to the 10-foot that's already there,
Correct.
but it would still afford,
Because you just have it shaded right now, is that's gonna be proposed to be that fescue lawn. So I'd like to know, identify the trees in that area and what you're gonna use to replace that biomass, that, as Betsy said, that ecosystem service that those trees provide, however heavily pruned they are. And how we're gonna replace that service to the resource area.
Okay.
All right, Kevin?
I'm a little hesitant about it, but the idea of if they're gonna just come back for a Vista prune, why not plan for it now?
If they don't want it, they don't want it. I mean,
Teresa, when did you say they purchased the property?
They purchased the property about a year ago.
Okay.
yeah, Kevin, they don't have to ask for it, but as long as they're gonna have to come back, they're gonna have to make a modification in what they're asking for, including putting where the trees are on the plan, then here's an opportunity, so they don't have to come back. But they don't have to ask for it. It's up to them.
All right. I agree with you, Patty.
all right. Steve?
My turn now? I didn't understand Betsy's point about you want 30 feet buffer between the naturally vegetated area and the grass area?
Well, I suggested 20 feet, but
20
there's
plus
already,
10, you said.
no, 10 plus 10. 10 plus the 10 that's there, plus the trees identified.
And I don't understand the need for the 20 foot, but I'm okay with everything else. And I think they should go ahead, assuming they're interested in getting the view corridor established, because it has been hacked away before.
The 10 is compensation for the plants that
I didn't ask the question, Mr. Chair.
you said you didn't understand. I was trying to help you, so you didn't have to wait till Thursday night for an answer.
Oh, boy. Teresa?
With your permission, if I could share the screen one more time, just to clarify and make sure that I am.
You know what we're talking about?
Yes, I want to make sure, but one question that I wanted to ask is if the commission felt comfortable if we were to pull that the existing fence is currently proposed here, and we could see the 50-foot no disturb zone A is this dashed red line here, and then this, I'm going to change the color if I can. How do I do this? And then this purple line is the flood zone line. And I'm wondering if we were to propose pulling the fence back and only having lawn outside of the flood zone and buffer zone A, if the commission would feel comfortable pulling it back to that flood hazard zone line. So we're out of the AE 15 flood zone, so that the entire AE 15 velocity and buffer zone A are completely vegetated. And then this fence would run along here and would allow that additional buffer. I'm not sure how many feet because I don't have a scale on this PDF. I'll have to run it in CAD, but we'd have all of this buffer to zone A. And then it would still provide enough lawn space for the dog and the children for the family. If that makes sense, let me erase this. So that everything that I've shaded in the purple would remain vegetated in a vegetated state. And then we would just look for opportunities to potentially plant along the southern property line and the northern property line in this area, potentially to replace some of the biomass of those hacked oaks, to use Jen's term.
Is that a technical term?
I've used it in the past.
Melissa
I've
was
done
much
it,
more
used it.
diplomatic than I was, but those oaks are just.
Well.
Teresa,
Mm-hmm.
you said that you put in a 10-foot buffer between the A zone and the fence. Where is that?
That's in that area. So the fence is, let me take this out. And again, I don't have the scale, but here's the buffer zone A is, let me just change the color again. This is the A zone. Oops. The A zone is here. Whoops. This is my really crummy annotating here on Zoom. So there's the A zone. This line's really thick. And then here is and then the fence is just on the inside of the solid red line that I.
So is it really 10 feet? Or
I'd have to measure it out
Yeah.
in CAD. It's probably a little bit, it's probably in some areas and then less in others, but yeah. So if we pulled it back, that's why I was questioning if the commission felt comfortable, if we were to pull all of that and at least not cross that flood hazard zone line there. Stay outside of that. And then that would just provide some lawn area right in here. And we could replant a little bit along this edge here. I'm not asking you to redesign. I'm not asking you to redesign the project for me on the fly. I'm just trying to get some feedback to understand if that's something that the commission would feel comfortable if we were to make those changes and bring that back.
Well, you just addressed what Betsy was asking for. If anything, I would say you're generous in that footage.
Okay.
I mean, same as you, I don't have a scale, but your dotted red line to the solid red line is significantly less than the solid red line to the
Well,
purple. Yeah.
In the area, yeah. So basically, sorry, I'm getting frustrated with my own poor annotation skills here.
Well, you can see the hazard line without any coloring. So
Yeah, exactly. So if we were to pull it back outside of that. And then this would all remain so this would be the entire A zone, and the flood hazard zone would remain completely vegetated. And we'd have to do some restoration of the vegetation in the area that's shaded in tan, because that vegetation is, as Jennifer said, not in great shape. As Jen and Alyssa pointed out, this vegetation in this kind of area in here is not in very good shape.
all right, if you would stop sharing, please.
Will do.
I mean, that looks like it addresses what everybody's concerned about now.
Okay. Well, then I think then the next best thing is for me to request a continuance.
All right, before you do that, though, hold on one second, please.
Oh, okay.
Jen, do we have anything in the public chat function?
Nothing in the public chat.
Thank you. Sorry, Teresa.
No.
Teresa, let me just check and see what we got going on the 8th before you just jump on that Gold Star bandwagon.
If I get 2 gold stars, I'll take the 15th.
It's either way. You can have either date, Teresa.
Okay, well, then let's go for the 8th because I think we can make those plan adjustments by then.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
And you can have a star too.
Oh, good. Okay, thanks.
At the request of the applicant, I make a motion to continue this hearing till March 8th.
Pat, a second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to continue this until March 8th. If there's nothing further. All right, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Steve,
Pat and I.
it is unanimous. We have continued this until March 8th. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you.
All right, Teresa, I'm just gonna place you back into the attendees to wait this next one out and then
Okay.
we'll come back.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, next up. Bear with me. Next up is a continued request for a hearing under a notice of intent. Kevin Delbridge, Delbridge Associates LLC, 192 Conneset Road, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to conduct invasive species management and restoration in order to address unauthorized clearing and to satisfy conditions of 3 open orders of conditions. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have promoted Doug Schneider up from Cape and Islands and Maria Hickey from Maria Hickey Landscapes to present their project or their continued project.
All right, Mr. Snyder, you're up, sir.
Good evening, all. Doug Schneider with Cape and Islands here on behalf of the applicant to present the project. If I could share my screen.
Yes,
we
sir.
could get underway. Let's see. Make sure I get the right one here. Let's see. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, this is 192 Saconesset, property owned by K. Delbridge Associates, Inc. Recently purchased the property mid last year. It's located adjacent to the Little Sippiwesset Marsh on the western part of Falmouth, adjacent to Buzzards Bay. This is an aerial photo of the property, where you can see Saconesset Road up at the front. The driveway comes in on the north, garage, house, pool, house, and we've got the Little Sippiwesset Creek on the west, south, and east of the property with salt marsh area that you can see in the picture. And let me jump to the plan. So the project in front of you tonight is primarily restoration of areas that were altered over the years by previous owner, and restoration and invasive species management. The house on the property was built about 20 plus years ago under 3 order conditions that were issued by the commission back in 97, 2000, 2002, all of which 3 orders are currently open. And over the last 20 years, the previous owner has performed numerous unauthorized activities that forced the commission to issue enforcement actions over the years, some of which were complied with, some of which have not been. In early 2022, the previous owner put the property up for sale, and they engaged Holmes & McGrath, now Cape and Islands, to do an existing conditions survey to look at closing out the 3 orders and conditions and comparing the plans from 20 plus years ago to today. There were numerous deviations on what had been cleared since the original house was built. And this was brought in front of the staff to review and identify the areas which needed to be mitigated or restored. And at that point, the current owner took over the project, purchased the property with understanding that he needed to deal with the alterations that had happened in the past, which included, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit on this. In the past, previous owners had cleared the area that you see with the diagonal hatches on the east and west side of the house that was not previously authorized. Plus, they installed a small garden on the west and some stepping stones on the western side. Once the Delbridge had acquired the property, they engaged Maria Hickey to look at what needed to be done for planting restoration. And in her review found that there was extensive invasive species throughout the site, primarily black locust that had taken over a large percent of the area that had been cleared and other areas of the site. So we've been working on developing a plan to remove the invasive species and revegetate the area with native, and I will leave that to Maria to discuss further on. The resource areas involved in the site include the Sippawisset Creek area. There's a salt marsh associated with that. We've got a coastal bank that loops around the property, and then coastal flood zone that actually the majority of the house and a portion of the work is in the zone X. And then there's also a small isolated vegetated degraded wetland area up in the northwest corner of the property. So the limit, I'm going to jump to another screen here. This is colorize the areas that are going to be revegetated, so you're going to see the extent of the work that's necessary. The color coding refers to particular plants that will be placed after the removal of all the invasive species. We'll be installing a limit of work around the entire perimeter and removing the invasive spaces and planting as necessary. The project does not involve any new or additional development on the site, so there's no mitigation plantings necessary. This is strictly restoration and invasive species removal. We think will not have any adverse impact on the functionality of the wetland resource areas. So there's no change in topography proposed. Just to give you, just jump to a couple of photographs of the site to give you a feel for the extent of the invasive species. This is a picture looking from the kind of the southerly side looking towards the house. And every single one of the orange ribbons that you see tied in this area that was cleared, this is part of the area that will be restored, are all locust saplings as part of the invasive species that have taken over the area. There are some dead trees that are adjacent, they're on the property that need to be removed and will be replaced. And you can see all the orange I'm just going to cycle through the pictures here you can see as in other areas that behind the staff and Maria in that picture is where the primary stand of the black locusts are that'll be removed. And let's see, where am I here? Just another view looking back on that same area, how extensive the This is the view of the small little garden that was installed. Again, an area taken over by the black locust. And looking, and then there we have some trees that are old and in really tough shape that need to be removed. We've met on site with staff to review all of them, staked all the proposed tree locations that we have. And so you just keep cycling through. Again, this is looking kind of southeast, southwest from the garden. And again, you can see the extent of the invasive species. Up at the road, there are several trees that are in pretty rough shape that need to come down and be replaced as well. Right at the road. That's just a view of the entrance into the road. And then there's a number of trees along on the other side of the entrance road that also need to be replaced. And I'm going to jump back to the site plan and turn it over to Maria so she can give you a better description of all the plantings that are going to occur in the area on the site. And I'll just leave the plan up if that works for you, Maria.
You got it. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good evening to the board, conservation staff, Doug. I want to first thank everybody for their enormous efforts in volunteering to be on the Conservation Commission board. It takes so much out of your time and it's a volunteer position. And wow, we really, really appreciate all your hard work and listening, especially on a not long night like tonight, to all these presentations. And then a special thank you to Jen and Alyssa, because we've worked really hard with them behind the scenes in trying to come up with the best planting plan that's most appropriate for this site. To work a little bit backwards. So our client, Kevin Delbridge Associates LLC, actually owns the house across the street. And he watched us as we did the mitigation and restoration plantings at 174 Saconesset. And he was so impressed with that work, and he would come over and talk with us while we were working. And he mentioned he was thinking about purchasing this property for his grown children and his grandchildren so that they would have a place to stay when they came here in the summers. And he was quite aware of the open orders of conditions and then even some enforcement orders that had been issued for cutting trees without a permit. And I encouraged him, after doing a walk through the site, that when he purchased the property, he should ask to take on the enforcement and open orders of conditions. The reason why, and I've worked many years in this field, when I did a walk around the site, I saw all of the locust trees. And as I explained a little bit last week to you guys in another hearing, a locust tree is highly invasive and its roots can spread up to 80 feet underground. And from those roots, you have seedlings or saplings that grow up. And so we went out and we actually marked every single seedling that we could find. I can't even tell you how many rolls of flagging tape I went through. There's hundreds of them to drive the point home that when we plant mitigation and restoration plantings, we want to plant them not just to survive, but to thrive and provide a beautiful habitat of diverse heights, flowering shrubs, buried shrubs, etc. And when you have locust trees, it's an incompatible goal because the locust trees have nitrogen fixing nodules in their roots and they affix nitrogen into the soil, which can adversely impact the ability of our native shrubs to thrive. So we would be remiss to just go out and plant the mitigation plantings without looking at the bigger picture of what is out here that's going to interfere with our ability to restore this property how it should be restored. So if you start even just out at the entrance of the driveway, there's a mix of Leland cypress and assorted pine trees that are leaning towards the garage. If I point, they're leaning this way. and they're uprooting. You can see the roots on a bunch of them. So the first concern obviously is not if, it's when are they falling? And it makes sense, since most of them are not native, that we remove them and we replace them with native trees. To the left of those trees is almost like a little gully, where there's a couple of beautiful cedar trees, but they are so girdled in vines. It's really sad to see, because a cedar tree, when you try to remove ivy or invasive vines that have girdled into the tree, it removes the bark when you're trying to take the vines off, which then kills the tree. They tend to have a softer bark. So clearly, we want our efforts to be restorative and to improve, not to kill things. As you move into the driveway, you'll see on the left where they installed like a little garden and some stepping stones, that there are like 2 or 3 black cherries that have been severely pruned, beyond the point of them being a healthy tree. So again, on those, we're going to remove them and replace them with black cherry trees, and remove as many of the locust roots and vines and bittersweet and porcelainberry from that area, so that we now can replant and restore this whole area with native species. We put a lot of time into the planting plans and meeting with Jen and Alyssa, and out in the field, staking every little thing to give you all a very clear, transparent perspective of what our goals are of replanting down to species and quantities, et cetera, et cetera. So this will be a mass restoration plan. I'm sorry about my dogs barking. Of, a native shrub every 3 feet on center, except for the viburnums. There'll be 5 feet on center because it grows much bigger and quickly out of the box. As you come around this bend right here, there are so many, it's almost ironic, so many locust trees that were topped. So again, it's like pruning trees without a permit, and they're not even native trees to boot. And it's this whole area right here is just such a mess of non-native trees and vegetation. I mean, I couldn't even find a single native thing in there. And I probably spent a week out there hiking and going through every square inch. There are also, you can't see them on the plan, but there are a couple of really big boulders out there. So please know that when we remove the locust trees and we start replanting new trees, there may be some areas that we obviously can't put a tree or a shrub because there's a boulder blocking that area. And as we come around the corner, this area here is very, very exposed to the wind, the salt spray, full sun. We are planting some new trees in there. However, it's the most exposed, harshest area. And I know that the commission has always asked us, to give diversity in our plantings, and that benefits the site in many instances. In this particular one, there's only 3 plants that I could come up with that would be suitable and would thrive in this situation. And then there's a couple of more on the list that really are not suitable, that we don't even want to plant them there because they're just going to die. That means we have to disturb the area, go in and replant. So currently I have it slated for bayberry, which is in the green. Okay, we know it can take a ton of wind, salt spray and everything. It's thrived on other projects of ours. The yellow banding would be hypericum. Across Cape Cod, many of the conservation commissions have adopted the Barnstable County Cooperative Extension list of native plants, which includes hypericum. I understand Falmouth hasn't done that. We would love it if you guys took a look at that list and considered maybe in the future adopting plants on that, adopting that plant list as our guide. As I met with Jen and Alyssa about this last week, and obviously a lot of it is common sense. I'm never going to come into you guys and say, we're planting bearberry, in this area because it's on the list. I mean, bearberry is an understory plant. to plant under another native shrub for erosion control. It should never be the only plant in that area. But the point I was trying to make is that, especially in Hyannisport, we have some clients that are on estates that have the same site conditions, and the hypericum thrives. I did go with Jen and Alyssa this week and showed them in Falmouth one site that we planted hypericum at the end of June. Now, granted, they were a number 2 gallon size shrub. We had a water band and it was really hot all summer, but still there wasn't a single dead hypericum, whereas some of the other varieties in this planting plan had died and they didn't look in such great shape. So we're, asking the commission to please consider the hypericum in this area. Otherwise, my only other plant that I could fall back on that would really thrive would be Rosa virginiana. And I've listened, to staff's and the board's concerns about not having Cape Cod and Falmouth be a rose garden. The Rosa virginiana is extremely hardy. The hips provide food and nourishment for the birds all fall and winter. So it's on the list that Falmouth approves. So I'm not asking for the Rosa virginiana. I'm asking for you to respectfully consider the hypericum, our request for this, because if it fails, then we're going to have to replant anyhow. And I can do it with Rosa virginia then, or whatever the board and I can agree, because we did the original planting plan. I had a different shrub there, and Jen asked us not to put it there, and that's fine. We want to do what's best for the site and have the full support of the board and conservation staff, because we're in this to have a win-win, to do it once and do it right and not have to redisturb an area that we've planted. Another area of concern is this isolated wetland. So when Jen, Alyssa, Doug, and I went out and met this fall, there really wasn't much water in there. It had dried up. Well, then we had torrential rains, which was fabulous. We needed the rain. So the water level is a little higher now. But when we have gone out there to look at it, it's so difficult to make an assessment of what plants we're going to put in there, because the entire area is a canopy of porcelainberry, honeysuckle, and bittersweet. So I can't even see what's under there. And so we agree with staff, like, we're going to clear it, and then we'll look at our list of FAC plants and come, work out the most appropriate plants for that site, with conservation staff. Because again, we want to be responsible. We want the plants to thrive. We don't want to have to replace dead plants. And as part of our evaluation, we can't see what's underneath, it's hard to make that recommendation. How wet is the soil, et cetera, et cetera. So the only other comments that I wanted to make were that it is a dense planting and restoration project, and it's voluntary, but also we have a lot of mitigation areas as shown in these hashed lines. And we want to make sure, first and foremost, that all the plants survive. And so because of that, we have to remove the competing invasive non-native trees and vegetation that every single time they're going to win. They're going to take the nutrients out of the soil, the water, the sun, so I can't stress enough how important it is to address that first. And again, if you look at 174 Saconesset, which is right next door, that was a highly successful project, that we did 2 years ago that looked exactly like this one. They're almost duplicates of each other. So with no further ado, I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have. And thank you again for all your support and help and input on these projects.
Thanks, Maria. Doug, if you would please stop sharing. Thank you. Jen.
Yes, Maria, how many trees are you taking out?
There's a total of, I believe, 48 trees that are being removed.
And how many trees are you putting back in?
Yeah, so I have, hold on, let me read you. It's on the planting plan. We have a lot, believe, we have 53 trees that we are replanting. And there's a division between deciduous and evergreen, but they're all native.
Okay.
And he gave
Now,
our-
did we take into account the trees that were removed prior to you getting involved with this site?
Yes, we did.
And how many trees were those?
Was it 12 or 13? Jeff Johnson has that number, but it was included in our calculations.
So if you're removing 48 and you're replacing 53, but there are 13 that Jeff says were taken out without a permit. Last time I checked, 38, 48, and 13 was 61.
So within that 48 are the 13 trees that were cut. We're just gonna take out the stumps so that we can replant.
Maria, I'm going to show you an aerial from 2005 that shows that pool area completely covered in cedar trees. And then I'm going to show you an aerial from last year that shows it completely bare. So you're not counting those trees. That's one of the reasons we had Jeff go in there and try to calculate how many trees are being removed, is because where you're putting all that hypericum, which is considered a low-growing shrub with Barnstable County, we're well aware of the Barnstable County list. I don't need to adopt it. You know, that whole area was all cedars. Like, you're doing a great job on this. I know you're really trying, but I'm kind of concerned with all the low-growing hypericum right where there was a massive grove of cedar trees that not your client, but the former owner removed without a permit and never replaced. So I kind of have some concerns right there. And just looking at your plan, I understand you're pushing the hypericum. I understand you're trying to diversify your plant list. I get it. But again, I'm going to bring up what I brought up the last time, is that we said that we use it on 18 Willis. We don't really have an idea. Yes, we went out to the site to look at 18 Willis the other day. But I mean, the plants are, you know, very, very small. How big does the hypericum grow?
I mean, in full sun, it's going to get big, 4 to 5 feet, 7 feet across. And keep in mind, the ones on Willis, they were planted 6 months ago. And we had a severe heat and drought and a water
So
ban.
how are we supposed to evaluate the ones on Willis when, you know, again, you know, go back to, we said that we would allow the ones being planted on Willis to see how they would do until compliance time, but you're not even giving us that ability. You're putting it on every plan. Now we have to approve a plan tonight on Clues, where it's all over Clues Drive too. So I just kind of want to, you know, height 2 to 3, height and width. No, that way, hang on.
I've actually
4 and
never
4.
seen them 2 to 3.
4 and
Doug,
4.
can you share the pictures of the hypericum from Hyannisport so the board could see?
Where in Hyannisport is it?
Some of them are on Atlantic Avenue.
If I may share my screen.
Sure, thank you, Doug.
Get the right one here. Can you see that all right?
Yep, thank you.
This is one of the pictures, Maria.
So this is all the hypericum that you're seeing. That's 3 years old. I mean, it gets huge. What I love about it is that it flowers. So you have food for the birds, the bees, the butterflies, and it provides a thicket. You see how the plants all grow together? Nobody can walk in there, so it's great shelter for wildlife. And not much kills. I have never had one die on me.
I will, if you're satisfied, I will stop sharing.
Thank you, Doug. No, I mean, I know, Maria, so this is my concern in the area that you have the hypericum. Give me 1 second. I lost what I was doing here. Um, 1 second.
I'm just gonna open my slide.
So
and wait
what
for me.
else, so Maria, while we're focusing on this area of Hypericum.
Sorry about that.
No, no worries.
And also too, more than happy to go over adding some more trees in that area with the Hypericum.
I think
It's not a big
that,
deal.
yeah, so, Mr. Chairman, if I may share my screen.
Sure.
Hang on 1 second. One second, so this is, can everybody see this?
Yep.
So this is the area we're talking about, the Hypericum.
Just right in here. I'm
That's what
coming
the
up.
area looked like in 2005.
Wow.
So we had all these cedars in here and all this material. And now, and you know, going back, it's not, this was not done by the current property owner, but we just need to
Yeah.
kind of replace what was there. So as you can see, Maria, there were tremendous amount of trees in that area that were kind of removed. And now we're coming in and we're asking to remove more trees on this whole bank. And I get why you want to remove the invasives, the locusts, and you did a great job out in the field about showing us how those roots grow and the need to take them out. So I really appreciate that. And I know some of the board members were, I don't know if impressed was the word or shocked with the amount of flags out there, but we got several comments about the number of flags and what they were looking at and everything. And we explained to them, you know, what your methodology was and trying to help them understand exactly what those locust trees do. But in the area, and I get that the lower growing stuff, it gives you the vista of the water from the pool. But again, that natural environment that was there and was removed, I'd like to see, you know, try to reclaim what was there as opposed to trying to put in the Hypericum in that area. I'm not saying that I'm not, you know, I'm not gonna support the use of Hypericum going forward, but to just have that whole area blanketed with Hypericum and having those cedar trees not replaced where they were is just, I'm just having trouble with that. Other than that, I mean, and that's the area I'm focusing on right now. Doug, could you do me a favor? Could you put your colored plan back up? Because we don't have the same colored plan, or at least I don't have one in front of me like you do. I
And Jen,
grabbed the
one
wrong
thing
one.
when we were out there, just to remind you, we had the 3 dead trees, so we're planting 3 new trees there. And you'd said, I don't want to take away his views.
Well, I
So-
don't want to take away his view, but I don't want to just not replace what was there.
I understand. Can we establish a view corridor then, a vista view?
Oh,
corridor
absolutely.
That's 25
Absolutely.
feet wide here because we're putting in a lot of trees and I'm more than happy to come further over with trees. I put all the stakes out with colored ribbons. Red meant deciduous, green meant evergreen. And there's 53 stakes out there. We're
Yep, and I
willing,
get it.
you know, to add more. And I think just with the Hypericum, it's such a successful plant on other sites, as you just saw in the photos, that I wanted to use that. I understand we can use Rosa virginiana because it's already on our list of approved plants, but I was trying to be respectful of the board and your wishes of, you know, we really don't want to see it there.
I do not see one native rose on that entire site.
Yeah, there's tons of Rosa rugosa right here. There's a whole huge strand of it. This whole bank is Rosa rugosa.
But Rosa rugosa is not Rosa virginiana.
No, but Rosa rugosa is invasive. Okay, we're gonna remove it. But it looks like Rose virginiana, the theory being that it's a blooming plant that has rose hips that provides food and shelter for wildlife. And that's what we're trying to accomplish, is provide plants that are multifunctional and that provide a much higher habitat value than what we have right now. Bayberry's great. I mean, look at how much bayberry I have, but it doesn't flower. It doesn't provide as much food. I don't know.
Okay,
No,
I
I don't
just
ever see
made I just made those few points I
Yeah.
wanted to make, Maria. That's fine.
Okay.
Like I said, you did a lot of work on this site. We understand that. You can stop sharing, Doug. Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Doug.
We understand that. And I know the board's going to appreciate the effort that
Thank
you
you.
put into this plan and everything else. I just kind of wanted to give the board all the information to see.
Sure.
And again, your client just acquired the property. We get that.
Yeah,
Again, I do not want to put a wall of cedars in front of that pool because I do not want to be in this situation
yeah,
5 years from now when the cedars are gone. But
yeah.
I just wanted I wanted the board to see what the site looked like, what it looks like now, and then what you're trying to achieve. And we can let the board decide.
You got it.
Okay,
Thank
but
you.
we are aware of the county plant list.
Yeah, I know.
We know about it. We tell people to go to that list all the time. We just need to, just because it's on a list doesn't mean it's appropriate for all sites, and you know that.
Of course, of
Yeah.
course.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, I think that's all I have. I do, so you're saying that the 48 include the 13 that
Correct.
Jeff identified? That
Yes.
taken out.
Because we
Okay.
had this whole Zoom, if you remember, actually a couple of them, Zoom hearings with Jeff and Alyssa and you, and
Yeah.
he went through that whole thing of how he came up to that number 48.
Okay. Just needed to refresh. So if you're
Yep.
telling me right now that that 48 includes those 13 that
Correct.
that are not on site right now that you're just replacing, I'm good with that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Ms. Bergeron.
Thank you. Just a couple comments. Doug, I did receive your email today, so thank you for correcting that label. Maria, you were correct on the 13 number. Jeff Johnson did make note of that in
Okay.
the narrative. He determined looking through, and I know he spent a lot of time looking at all of our photos we had, aerials, trying to come up with some kind of number here to work with. He did find 13 to be removed, and it says on the west side of the property. So I believe that's the cleared
Yeah.
area.
Yep.
The only discrepancy I found, and I just recounted, there were about 75 X's on your plan in terms of trees to be removed. I know those do include the locusts, the black cherries. So I'm not sure if the 48 you're referring to is everything except those. But that was the number I came up with looking at the plan. Just to add to the conversation.
I know that some of the X's are ornamental trees, and
Sure.
we're replacing them with native trees.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. Commissioner comment, Betsy.
Yeah, are you talking about Hypericum perforatum?
St. John's wort. Yes.
Yeah, so since you mentioned it last week and I'm looking again, that's poisonous to grazing animals. And it's also poisonous to some insects. So it's considered invasive in some areas. So before we put big swaths of it
Mhm.
on these sites, I'd like a little more research done. So I tend to agree with Jen. It should be used sparingly.
Which Hypericum did you
Yeah.
mention, Betsy?
Perforatum.
This is
It's dentatum.
DENSIFLORM. ORUM, sorry.
Yeah.
DEN.
St.
Dentatum.
Yeah, well, perforatum is also called St. John's wort.
Okay.
But I'd look into it. That whole genus produces oils that are toxic to things that eat it.
Anything else?
That's all. Thanks.
All right. All right. Moving forward. Maria, that computer screen looks well, better than your
Thank
phone. You get
No,
punched there.
it's actually from Donna Woods Hole, Fay Road. We did a restoration project there. That was down at the beach.
That's your new computer setup, Maria?
It is.
It works. Thank you.
Yeah, for the dogs. I had to send a quick text to the dog sitter to come to my house and take the dogs out. I was so afraid they were gonna bark, and of course they did.
All right, Kevin.
Absolutely no comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Do you want to debate the plants? All right, Steve.
Oh, I just wanted to show appreciation for her recognition of the extraordinary effort the commissioners make. Something, but yeah, I am unfamiliar with the plant, to be honest with you. And the site has been badly damaged in the past, but this really looks like a good plan overall, I'd say. I just don't know the plan issues.
Thank you, Steve. And again, I just wanted to reiterate how much we appreciate that you guys volunteer your time and have the willingness to sit through all these hearings. And it's a lot of hard work. I mean, just sitting tonight, hearing all of them, I'm like, wow, I need to go to bed. Anyhow, and thank you especially to Jen and Alyssa and staff for their willingness to come out on the site visits with us, because you can't always tell the whole story just on a piece of paper and on a site plan. You know, seeing it in person really is more impactful.
Thank you. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function?
Nothing in the public chat, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Doug and or Maria, anything to add?
No, just thank you so much for your time and your consideration. And we do understand it's a big project. However, we have worked very hard on all of our other projects, and we thank you for your trust and confidence in us to do a great job on this one as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Jen?
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Doug.
Thank you all again. We're hoping we can close this out tonight. If there's any outstanding issues with the plantings that maybe we can work with Jen to resolve any of the minor issues. We think we've got a good plan here that's worthy of moving forward, except for just that one area. And I think we can clarify that or work with Jen to, even in the field during construction, to make sure everything's planted the way it needs to be. Our goal is to produce a good product here for the environment and the property owner who's taking this rather large project on. And we thank you.
Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
No, if you had anything to add?
No,
All right, so how are we gonna do with these plants?
I don't know.
Something we can
Betsy seems concerned with.
I'm concerned with closing it.
Well, that was my question, if I was allowed to finish it, was, is it something that we can condition, or is it something we need a revised plan for?
And do you want us to just swap out the Hypericum
Uh,
for Rosa
uh,
Virginia?
Hold on.
It's up to the board's comfort level. We can write whatever. It's going to be really what the board's comfortable with.
All right. Betsy, I'm not throwing it on you, but I just want to make sure your concerns are addressed. How do you feel?
Well,
Revised plan versus conditioning.
I'm concerned with closing something and then saying a new plan has to come in and then not having that meet what the expectations are. I mean, you remember we had a problem with that a few years ago.
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, we're also talking about additional trees, so it does sound like we would need to continue this with a revised plan. Maria?
I just want to remind the board that a significant portion of this project is voluntary. And we're trying to get our work done and the plants planted before the summer so the family can enjoy their new home. And I would respectfully ask that you can have faith and trust in Jen and Alyssa and I to absolutely work out the best plan for that one area. And if it means moving trees over there, we're fine. But if we continue the hearing, the client is not going to want us to do the voluntary part of the project because it's going to take too much time. And
All right, hold.
I mean,
hold
not
on,
want us,
hold
but
that-
I mean, like,
so-
there's
hold
going to
that
be a
thought.
great
Hold-
concern. Like, how are you guys going to get this finished and planted before the summer, you know?
Stop.
And it's like, we have worked so hard and had Zoom hearings and site hearings.
Stop.
Okay.
First of all, don't threaten us. Second
Oh,
of
no,
all, don't talk.
Okay.
Well, staff is not your designer. So
Okay.
we need to make sure that we have a proper design for the proposed project. So Jen, my question to you is the plan adequate to address non-voluntary stuff, the stuff that it would have been under that enforcement order and so forth? If it's not clear, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, and I guess I am, but that wasn't my intention.
I'd have to go back and look at the old enforcement orders, Mr. Chairman, so I'm not ready to address that question on what's the voluntary versus the non-voluntary portion of this. I apologize. I'll
No,
be
no.
more prepared next time to answer a question like that.
It's a pretty complex plan, so, you know, it's all right.
And I mean,
Last
if we're going
comment.
to continue, we're talking 2 weeks. If 2 weeks is going to, I can't see how 2 weeks is going to really make or break a project, but
No, it wouldn't. But I was thinking it was going to be moved out 4 weeks, you know? And we've worked really hard having a number of Zoom hearings and meetings with staff to get
you understand.
consensus. Okay, this plan is great. We support this. And then have even the staff report yesterday, no objections. They're on board with it. And I even went in and met with Jan and Alyssa about the Hypericum because this is exactly what I didn't want to have happen. I
Maria,
said,
you're just not listening to us. That's why we've addressed the concerns over the use of the Hypericum multiple times. You're just not listening to us. I'm sorry. You're not listening to
Okay,
us.
so can I ask the board's permission to swap out the Hypericum for Rosa virginiana? Because that species, the Rosa virginiana will thrive there. It's windy, it's salt spray, it's full sun. Anything else that we put in there is going to die. And then we get into this vicious cycle of replanting over and over and over again. The other option would be to make that whole area bayberry, which we're happy to do that as well. But I know that the board usually frowns upon a monoculture of one species. But it's really harsh and it's very, very, very exposed. It's full sun, full wind, full salt spray. And a majority of that bank is restoration. The mitigation part is only the area up by the pool. So it's like 1/3 mitigation, 2/3 restoration if you needed a breakdown. And if it would be more appealing to the board to have all the bayberry up by the pool and put Rosa virginiana on the lower slope of the bank where the riprap wall is, where there currently is an enormous area of Rosa virginiana, would be willing to do that too. And I'm sorry if I seem frustrated. It's just we've had so many, Jeff Johnson and Alyssa, Jen, Doug, and I have had a number of hearings and on-site visits to get to this point that, like, yes, this is approvable.
Yeah, but this is your first hearing with the commission.
I
so
understand.
You
I
know,
understand.
if we were all involved, then I could accept your frustration, but
Sure.
you know, this is the first time we're hearing it. So
Yeah,
that's not really, it's not fair to us to say that you know,
Sure.
everybody else is okay with it and we just have to accept it.
I
So
understand.
this is going on long enough, so to ask you, Maria and Doug, as applicants, take the 2-week continuance, iron out any details, and then we can move forward. I mean, I can't make you accept the continuance. I'm just throwing that out there.
That would be to March 1st.
No, March 1st, March 8th. It would be March 8th, Doug, because we're completely booked on the March 1st. And I promised Steve at the beginning of the hearing, I wouldn't put any more hearings on March 1st. We have like 6 continuances that night.
That'd be 3
That's
weeks
3
out. then.
weeks. So it's,
Yeah, I
Would the
misstated
board-
that because it's two meetings next week.
so would the board accept a swap of, instead of Hypericum, we just make it all Bayberry? Up by the pool.
Mr. Chairman, let's just close the hearing and then condition it,
Okay,
because we're not going to get anywhere tonight.
I make a
Agreed.
motion to close this hearing and take it under advisement.
And second,
all right, we have a motion and a second to close this hearing. We're done with commenting, we're voting. Betsy?
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin?
Brian, I,
and I.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Maria.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. We appreciate your time.
Oh, boy. Next up. Lucius and Wendy Hill, 0, Nashawina Street, map and parcel 24-20-001-000, Falmouth, Mass. For permission to conduct invasive species management and restoration. And for the record, we are also opening simultaneously map and parcel number 24-20-002-000. And this is a continued hearing, just for the record. Ben?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I've promoted Teresa Sprague up to present her projects. Welcome back, Teresa.
Thank you. Good evening again, everyone. Teresa Sprague with Blue Flax Design here on behalf of the Hill family. I think I can wrap this up very quickly. We, as happened at the last hearing, we had reviewed staff comments. I was made aware of some typos that were made on the plan. We've revised those. I did meet with Alyssa out at the site to review the property lines. And there was some question because the town GIS maps didn't quite match or don't match the survey that Falmouth Engineering had done, but it has been determined that Falmouth Engineering survey is correct. If you recall, this project consists of 2 different parts. One is a parcel that is to the west of Nashawina Street that's owned by the Hill family. At 75 Nashawina, and then to the north of that are 2 parcels owned by the town of Falmouth. If with the permission, I will share my screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Okay, so we are looking at the revised plan. So a couple of things I'll just very quickly walk through. We have the restoration and planting that is proposed to take place at 75 Nashawina. That's on the property itself and within the roadway layout, which we were approved by the Board of Selectmen to bring before you this evening. One of the questions that came up was regarding the width of the existing pathway that leads to the dock and ramp. So we have clarified in our plan notes that that path is to be no wider than 4 feet. And the area that's currently being mowed is to be restored with salt marsh grasses, including Spartina patens and Distichula spicata. So blackgrass and salt meadow cordgrass. So that pathway will be maintained at 4 feet wide, and the area that's currently showing as lawn will be planted with native salt marsh plugs. The area just to the west of that, invasive vegetation will be removed, a mix of Virginia rose, Rus aromatica, Carolina rose, and bayberry will be planted in that area. To the north of that, on the property owned by the town of Falmouth, we've got it broken down into two different areas. The area directly to the north of the hill property is more heavily invaded, approximately 75% invaded. That's about just under a 4,200 square foot area. We're proposing to manage out the invasive vegetation, to maintain the existing native vegetation, and then replant that entire area with a matrix of shrubs. 180 shrubs at 4 foot on center spacing, including bayberry, beach plum, winterberry holly, Carolina rose, and Rosa virginiana, all of which are present currently in this existing native plant matrix. There is an existing cedar tree that will be protected. The invasive vines will be removed from the cedar tree, and the cedar tree will be allowed to maintain intact. On the northernmost portion of the property, it's slightly less invaded, so less than 25% invaded. That area totals about 4,400 square feet. There are a couple of very large shrub honeysuckles that are just in this northern portion of the property. So we are proposing to remove those large honeysuckles and replant them with 3 bayberry and 3 beach plum. The rest of the vegetation is mainly native. That's just been overtopped with a little bittersweet. So when we remove the bittersweet, that native vegetation will be allowed to regenerate in place. There is a significant amount of Baccharis helmifolia, the groundsel bush that's located throughout these areas. We know from experience that when invasive vegetation is removed, that groundsel bush really rebounds very quickly. So I am incredibly confident that that Baccharis along the edge of the salt marsh into the upland area will rebound very quickly. So we have also updated our land management plan, revised date February 7th. That includes what I've just reviewed with you in the planting plan. Again, just as a reminder, the main invasive vegetation on the site includes bittersweet shrub honeysuckle, border privet, Japanese barberry, vine honeysuckle, multiflora rose, and that's what we will be removing. The existing native vegetation, Baccharis, beach plum, bayberry, Rosa virginiana, Rosa carolina, winterberry holly will all remain and eastern red cedar will remain intact. I think the one final piece was there was some concern from staff. We had proposed an amelanchier serviceberry. There was some concern about sight lines, so we removed the serviceberry and added some additional shrubs in place of that. So I'm happy to answer any questions about the revised plan. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Teresa. Jen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I think we continued this hearing because I wanted Teresa to go out with the staff to look at the area where she wanted to plant the Virginia rose. Was it the Virginia rose?
It was a mix of Virginia rose and Rosa carolina. So we reduced the amount of Rosa carolina, increased amount of Rosa virginiana. So we had more of a balanced mix.
Correct. And then you went out with Alyssa. Can't remember why. I think I was ill that day.
I think you were sick that day, yeah.
And couldn't make it, but she did say that you went out and you guys went in there and you pointed out where it was native. And that's all I really wanted to know is, does it naturally exist there?
Yes.
As natural as our coastlines can be at this point, after being managed for so many years. So I appreciate that effort. And I thank you for that.
Yep.
I don't have any additional questions, Mr. Chairman.
You, Ms. Bergeron?
Just one follow-up, Teresa. I can't remember this part of the conversation we had on site, but I think we were going to meet up during your invasive species removal to look at some of those really heavily pruned. I think there were cherry and a couple other trees that were out there and sort of pick the best ones to allow them to regenerate naturally. Is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you for reminding me of that. So certainly that's something we could condition that when we do the initial invasive species management, we have a meeting on site. Either, while that's underway, I think would probably be the best way to do it. There are some cherry trees that have been pruned for vistas. And I think looking at them and choosing some that we may be able to keep and maintain and allow to regenerate back as more naturally shaped cherry trees, and then some that are just have been so poorly or so damaged that we would just replace them with the shrubs that we're proposing.
Yeah, I think some of them were just yay big stumps at this point. Yeah.
Yes, with big
Okay.
holes in them, yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right. Betsy?
No, thanks, Teresa, for responding to our concerns, and it'll be a nice job when it's done.
Thank you.
All right. Kevin?
No questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Steve?
No question. Thank you.
All right, Teresa, I also thank you for working with staff and revising this plan. Jen, is there anything in the public chat function, please?
Nothing in the public chat, Mr. Chairman.
All right. There's no further questions or comments. I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement. Gladfelter.
And I'll second it. Patton?
Excellent. We have a motion and a second to close the hearing. If there's nothing further. All right, Betsy.
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin.
O'Brien, aye.
Steve.
Patton? Aye.
It is unanimous. We have closed this hearing. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you very much. Have a good night, everyone. Thanks.
Good night, Teresa.
Okay, good night.
All right. Next up is a continued request to amend an existing order of conditions that has been previously continued. Next up is a continued request for a hearing under an enforcement order. Stephen Guiggio and Kathleen Tuhig, Guiggio, 192 Succonesset Road, Falmouth, Mass. Unpermitted clearing within conservation jurisdiction. And I'm not so sure procedurally how this works because this.
Procedurally, Mr. Chairman, I wouldn't close this enforcement matter until the other project is completed.
Okay.
So I think we should just, I think we should just kick it out onto our agenda for like a month or so and see where we go with the 192 project.
Okay.
Okay.
But we need to vote that officially as a continuance, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So why don't, let me get a date for us here. Why don't we kick that out? Because I would hate to close that matter and then something happen. Sorry, Steve, I'm hurrying. How about we kick it out to April 5th?
Make a motion to continue this until April 5th.
Gladfelter, second.
All right.
Which
We have a
one are we
motion.
continuing to April 5th?
No. Oh, yes, April
Yes,
5th.
April 5th. April 5th, 192.
192.
All right, the motion and the second on the table is to continue this until 4/5. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
okay, you by surprise? Matthews,
Well,
aye.
it was.
Kevin?
I'm sort of fading out a little bit here.
Yeah, we all. Kevin, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you if you voted.
Aye.
Steve,
Yes. Patton, I approve.
oh boy, long
Wait till
night,
the 1st. This is early.
you know?
Oh,
We're out of shape.
Next up is,
Don't-
well, it's
Don't
been
the three of
previously
us get a
continued.
chance to leave on the 1st and just leave Jamie with the other three?
Didn't I tell you I was gonna be sick that day? Yeah, the three that were not here tonight should take it over. All right, moving forward. Conditions, Logan Charles Roussel, trustee, Charles Roussel, 2014 revocable trust, 15 Clues Drive, Falmouth, Mass.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm getting there.
Yeah, take your time, we have all night.
Funny. So this was, obviously the invasive species removal and replanting plan. There are bands of the Hypericum on this plan. The board always has the colored portion of it, so I don't really know, Betsy, what you want to do with this one, since you have, concerns with the grazing. It's not as large an area as on that. It's kind of little bands next to the perennial.
Yeah, I think it should be all right in that area. But you know what I'm really worried about is that there's signs that could be invasive. I mean, I think there it'll be fine because there's plenty of other stuff that's going to be put in growing up with it.
Mm-hmm.
But the last thing we need is another invasive to worry about.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But I think it's fine. What we closed.
Okay. It's up by like the driveway and along the perennial border, and then it's tucked into that wall near that isolated wetland. It's just not as prevalent on this plan as it is on 192. And I don't think there was any other 80% invaded, so the neighbors will change. So are you good with this, Bets?
Yeah.
Okay.
So do we need to have in a future agenda to discuss how much of that we're going to restrict?
Well, the thing is my whole point was that we allowed it on 118 Willis, to allow these designers some diversity. And it was just planted 6 months ago.
Right.
And
There's nothing to prove.
that's my whole issue, is that we made this concession to allow them to have more diversity, and all of a sudden I'm seeing it on every plan. So that faith that, we entered into this agreement to allow it on one site to see how it would grow, just like we did the huckleberry sod, that faith, that agreement is not being honored. And that's where I'm having a problem is, we're not sure what it's going to do. We're not sure how it's going to grow. And now it's just kind of being forced upon us on every plan. And, I'm not in the habit of like arguing with somebody. My position has been clear. It was clear last week when I mentioned this thing. It was been clear in the field. I never made I did not say that we went and observed it the other day. Other than that, we observed it. That's all we did.
Yeah.
So, I'm a little frustrated. I understand the frustration on the designer's end, but the staff is frustrated too. We're making these agreements and we're like, okay, let's try this and let's do this. And then next thing you know, we see it on every plan. I'm like,
All right. So are we going the wrong direction allowing it here? How I feel, it's site by site, but just the precedent setting, right?
Yeah. I mean, we have it on 18 Willis. We'd have it here. Alyssa, is there another site we have it on? I know we have Huckleberry Sod out on.
I think that's on 2 sites.
That's on 24 Willis, and that's on 127 or 187 Penzance.
I really thought we had Hypericum on another site. For the life of me, I can't remember because it would have been, last year. I mean, this could be the second site.
But we're allowing enough that we can get a good idea whether it's going to succeed or not. Right?
Yeah, I think it's important to have differing environments.
Okay.
Willis is
All
a
right.
very harsh environment. This would
Correct.
be much more inland.
Okay.
We could see how that goes.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
this is, I'm with Alyssa. It's a completely different environment. So let's see how it does here. Willis is harsh. I mean, Willis, there's no doubt about it. Willis is a harsh site.
Okay.
So I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I just
Anybody
want
have
to
anything
try
else they
the
wanna see?
different areas to see what our comfort level is.
No, that's a good point. All right, anything else? All right, and for the record, the quorum includes all of us here tonight,
Thank goodness.
you know? Unless we lose somebody sleeping. All right, what are you thinking?
I'll make a motion to issue an order of conditions as discussed. Gladfelter.
I will second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions. Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye. Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Steve?
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Next up, AC Cape Cod LLC, care of Barrett Sutton, 836 Palmer Avenue, Falmouth, Mass. And for the record, the quorum includes the four of us here.
We're at the auto camp. I think Time Bond, you know, did a great job reviewing the project for us. So, you know, that was helpful for us. I think one of their conditions was have the geotech on site when that wall is going in. Correct, Jamie?
Yes.
Another is to pull those stumps, correct?
Correct.
Got that backwards.
And I think you should add a couple of trees.
No, I know, but we did want
Yeah.
them to pull the stumps, correct?
Yes, yeah, that's
And
what they
then
said.
we had
Otherwise, it leaves
3
a void.
additional trees.
Yep.
Okay, that's what I have for notes.
And apparently, seems to me like you're put in a position, you and Alyssa, of designing all these projects. Apparently, you're actually gonna go out there and talk about the planting plan, which is fine with me, but it's the burden is on you. But that's how it was left.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Staff, yeah. That's fine.
Well, we appreciate the effort. And just to say it, you know, I'll give Zach some point, you know, that, you know, worked well with Time Bond. So, I mean, it's, you know, it stinks that it had to go on this far and, you know, it got to this point, but, you know, everybody seemed to play nice. So,
I will have to say, Bracken did step up when we called them, when we got the complaints in for Auto Camp. I don't want the delay to be a reflection on Bracken, because when we got the thing, we had to shut the project down. We immediately called Bracken Engineering and they were very responsive. They came right out and talked to us. So that company was very responsive when we had to shut the project down, and you know, it's, you know, they had their own, you know, workload issues that they had to work with. Then Courtney wanted the geotechnical study, so they had to send that out. So it took a while, but at least we all know that wall is going to be safe, that it'll be stabilized, and we have a comfort level going forward. AutoCamp has enough unfortunate issues out there that they're dealing with, that this is one thing that they didn't need piled on to everything else. So
yeah, self-imposed though. So,
yes,
you know,
but
no,
you know.
no, I agree. I mean, that's why I brought it up, you know.
I think one of
All
my favorite things in any one of these meetings is when Jen asked about the waterfall feature. To look at the smile on Zach's face. He goes, oh, let me tell you about that.
Yeah. Jen, I had one other note from Maury actually about the planting, and I don't have it specific, but just simply that She's looking for stuff to be 3 foot on center, not 4 foot on center.
Got it.
Did I have that right?
Sure, yeah. Maury's always a 3 feet on center person, so that makes perfect sense.
So are we set?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to to issue an order of conditions as discussed. Gladfelter.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to issue an order of conditions as discussed. If there's nothing further, Betsy,
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye, Kevin,
O'Brien, aye.
Steve,
Matt and I.
it is unanimous. We have issued an order of conditions. Just a reminder, there is no meeting next week. Other than that, take one more motion.
Make a motion to adjourn, Patton.
O'Brien, second.
Gladfelter, aye.
Matthews, aye.
O'Brien, aye.
Pat and I.
It is unanimous. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.